this is how it's going to go. David and I have some questions that David is prepared to answer from me. This will take about 20 minutes or so, but then we're going to turn it over to all of you. How many opportunities do you get to talk to Britain's youngest foreign secretary in one's life? And so this is in many ways a privilege for me, and I hope it is for all of you as well. Okay, so David, I did a little bit of description of what IRC does, but could you share your kind of view in an overview of what IRC does, both internationally and within the United States?
Thanks very much, Dan. I hope you can hear me. Maybe you can wave your hand or something to show that you're able to hear. Yeah,
all good.
Great. I want to be very British and start with an apology. I was fully intending to be with you in person and able to meet people in the coffee breaks, but I'm afraid I've had to come to Europe last night, so I'm speaking to you from the Austria-Germany border. I also, just before I answer your question, do want to give a shout out to the originator of the Tamer school. I'm not sure if people know, but Tony Tamer came to the United States from Lebanon originally. He's made a very successful career in business, and I'm very honored that, having been on the International Rescue Committee's board of directors, he continues to be an advisor on the board of advisors of the IRC, and he's very much committed to the idea that animates your conference, which is that capital and the private sector system obviously exists to reward shareholders, but it also serves a wider social purpose, and it's better when it serves that wider social purpose. In respect of your question, the International Rescue Committee was founded by Albert Einstein in 1933, actually. The story really speaks to the themes of the day. He wrote to Eleanor Roosevelt throughout the 30s, trying to seek to persuade her husband, the president, to let Jews and other oppressed minorities in Germany come to the United States. That was a forlorn effort. And so he turned to non-governmental action by setting up the International Rescue Committee, one of the founders of it. Our first employee was in Nazi-occupied France in 1940. People like Marc Chagall were helped to escape from the Nazis because of the organization. Today, we're an international humanitarian aid agency with a number of distinctive features, and I think I should just explain them to you. We work in 40 countries, as you say, that are either war-torn or are sheltering people who've fled from conflict. In other words, we're not just a general anti-poverty agency. We're focused on people who are poor and vulnerable because of conflict and disaster. And that commitment to have focus is a source of our expertise and, I think, an enormous strength. We'll maybe discuss this, but there's always a temptation for NGOs, for non-governmental organizations to go chasing the money, whereas actually what you want is to be really good so that the money that seeks impact is chasing you. We're also unusual in having a very strong research and innovation focus, as well as a presence in 40 countries, 16,000 staff, 38 million people we helped last year. I think in the bio it gave a 2023 figure. In last fiscal year, we helped 38 million people. Our research and innovation focus is organized through our Airbell Impact Lab. I'm incredibly proud that although we're only 3% of the global humanitarian sector, we're about a $1.5 billion organization, or we were until the current administration took about $200 million away from us in the last 6 months. But although we're only about 3% of the global humanitarian sector, we do 30% of all of the impact evaluations, randomized control trials and other impact evaluations of what actually works in humanitarian practice. We work across the arc of crisis. About 25% of our clients are in conflict zones. So in Sudan, where I recently visited, in Gaza, in Ukraine, 25% are internally displaced. They fled from conflict, whether in Syria or in Afghanistan or in Ethiopia. Another quarter are refugees or asylum seekers, which means they've crossed borders. And then the final 25% are in host communities. For example, in Lebanon, where you've got a fifth of the population are refugees, we also support the host population. So we talk about working across the arc of crisis. And just to finish the sketch, I hope this isn't too long an answer, but tell me if it is. About 40% of our work is in health, maternal health, mental health, water and sanitation. 15% or so is in livelihood support, economic support, another 15% in education, another 15% in protection for women and kids who are especially vulnerable in conflict. So that's what we do, and very much looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. I'd love to know a bit more about your personal history and how that led you to IRC. In particular, what it was like transitioning from roles in public policy, serving in the office as the UK's foreign secretary. What are the differences between those types of experiences in the vast public sector and this another very public position as well?
Yeah.
We'd love to hear about your family background, perhaps any personal stories you have to share.
Sure. I mean, Foreign Secretary in the UK means Secretary of State, so my opposite numbers were, first of all, Condoleezza Rice and then Hillary Clinton for about 18 months each. In our system, when you lose an election, you're out of government. I was still in Parliament, as you indicated, but I felt I was in a bit of a dead end. And by 2013, I saw the opportunity to move into the NGO sector. I'll tell you what I told the interview panel at my job interview. I said there were three reasons why I wanted to join the IRC, three pull factors, if you like. The first was that I like difficult problems. Getting medical aid into Syria, war-torn at the time, teaching in Afghanistan, girls as well as boys, tackling sexual violence in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Those are difficult problems at the border of humanitarian policy and foreign policy. Secondly, I thought that the International Rescue Committee had a responsibility to be bigger and better known. We were a $400 million organization at the time. As I say, we're now $1.5 billion. We had a responsibility, I felt, because we were focused on people who were victims of war and disaster, and we needed to step up. We were a well-kept secret. And the third reason, which I think is, as I get older, becomes increasingly important to me, and maybe I've learned this from being in America for 12 years, the personal is political, the personal is professional. My parents were both refugees. My dad was a refugee from Belgium to the UK at the age of 16. My mum was a refugee from Poland to the UK, both Jewish families, lost many, many family members in the Holocaust. I'm only here because the UK allowed them in. And so I felt that in a small way, I had a debt to repay. Just to finish, you asked about the differences, and I want to just highlight two things. First of all, you undoubtedly have much more power, certainly formal power, when you're in government office than you do when you're running an NGO, but you also have many more obstacles to using that power. In an NGO, you're less powerful, but you have more freedom to exercise it. Secondly, and this speaks to how I've tried to do the job as President and CEO of the IRC, in government, you can see the big picture. The danger is that you lose sight of the people. In an NGO, you're confronted with the people you're serving every day, but the danger is that you lose sight of the big picture. And I've tried in my work at the IRC both to focus on the operational side of this to make sure that we're the most cost-efficient, most cost-effective agency, but also that we're thought leaders, both in what works in humanitarian practice, but also in calling out global trends like what I call the trend to impunity, which I think has been a big part of global politics in the last 10 years.
So I'd love to kind of talk more about your leadership style in this regard. This is kind of a follow-up question to what you were just talking about. How have you sought in your time at the RSC to implement some of these broader conceptual foci? Like how have you done that at the IRC?
Well, I think that I've never been to business school, so I can't tell you that culture eats strategy for lunch, which I'm told is the lesson 101.
Heard that.
We've actually is that right?
I've heard that, sure.
Yeah,
I teach strategy, so I don't necessarily. I can't say that I subscribe to that, but I hear you.
Okay.
I hear you.
In light of what I'm about to say, it's a good thing that you teach strategy, because we've implemented the opposite. We believe that strategy comes first, because if your strategy is, for example, defensive, you need one set of cultures. If your strategy is expansive, innovative, you need a different culture. And so we've very much driven by strategy. I felt that if we weren't clear about who we serve, where we work, and what counts as success, which I see as the essence of strategy, then we're not going to be able to work as a team. And the more effective we are to work as a team, the second aspect of my work becomes possible. If everyone knows what they're meant to be trying to do, then you've got time to think as well as to direct and to manage. So point one, focus on strategy so that different people in the boat know where they're meant to be rowing. Secondly, to carve out space for thinking. I do about 20% strategy, 20% management, 20% programs, 20% finance, 20% advocacy and communications, as I split up my time. Thirdly, I think that the most dangerous thing for any CEO is obviously that you get cut off, and none of us get an A+ on this. But I do think trying to always be open to different points of view is really important. And that means when you go on a visit to Sudan, you talk to the driver, the cleaner, the office manager, as well as talking to the finance department and the programs office. When you're trying to think about a speech that you're doing, I'm doing an Isaiah Berlin lecture, or I did the Columbia CEPA commencement address. You use it to bring challenge as well as confirmation to what you're thinking. And as I say, none of us get an A+ on that. But if you're not learning in a job, it's boring. And so I've always tried to make sure I'm learning. And those are some of the things I've tried to do as we've navigated a period of immense growth. We've grown more or less 2.5 to 3 times, and now we're in a period of retrenchment where the danger is that the gains are reversed. And so we're trying to learn as well as act.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to take that segment of the Zoom recording and play it for my class every single session at the beginning of every session. So thank you for that.
That's nice of you. Well, I hope it's not an example of what not to do. So
no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Thank you for sharing some insight into your day-to-day as well. I'd like to zoom out a little bit and talk about what you began to hint at toward the end of your response, which is contextualizing the IRC's mission and operations within our current moment today. You characterized it as a moment of retrenchment. I would completely agree, but I have to admit that I'm often befuddled at what I see in the news every day. With your experience, I'd love to hear your impression about how you would characterize more deeply this moment in history and what the consequences are for folks who are forcibly displaced, face the challenges of conflict and climate disaster as well.
Yeah, I mean, just so people know, there are 59 conflicts going on in the world at the moment, which is a record number since 1945. And so you're seeing a breakdown of global order, a world of disorder in some ways, a leaderless world in some ways, or a world of many leaders competing with each other. And certainly what we see 300 million people in humanitarian need, which means they depend on NGOs like the IRC to survive, that is a symptom of real rupture in the global system. I would say that there are 3 big things going on which explain geopolitics at the moment, which explain the symptoms we're dealing with, which explain some of the tumult. That's a better way of putting it. The first thing is that we're living in a world that isn't just more connected than ever before, although we are. We're living in a world where those very connections mean that global risks have risen in a way that is unprecedented. If you think about the climate crisis, and the speed with which it's spread, if you think about the climate crisis, did I say health? Sorry, if you think about COVID and the pandemic crisis and the way it's spread, if you think about the climate crisis, if you think about economic connections between one part of the world and the other, this connected world is a world of shared risks of a wholly new kind. That would be tough enough to address on its own. But the second thing that's going on is that we're living through a period of unprecedented geoeconomic and geopolitical shifts. I mean, essentially, America is sustaining its share of global GDP, gross domestic product, at about 25%. But some of the older, richer powers, notably Japan, Canada, and Europe, we in Europe and Japan and Canada, we've seen our share of global GDP fall from 42% to 18% in the last 35 years. And you can just do the maths. That means that China, India, Vietnam, Ghana, South Korea, United Arab Emirates, there's a new economic order in the world, and there's also a new political order. So the second thing going on is that from a Cold War where you had 2 blocks facing each other to a period after 1990 where America was described as a hyperpower, it could almost click its fingers and do what it liked. Now you've got many more countries who want to do what they like. And we're seeing that around the world, and America doesn't get its way in the same way as it did before. There's a new political order in the world. So point 1, we're dealing with global risks. Point 2, you've got geopolitical fragmentation. Point 3, and I won't dwell on this, but it's obvious, it's bleedingly obvious, we're living through a technological revolution of unknown consequences, not just a digital revolution, but the AI revolution, which I'm sure will pop up in your discussion. And we may want to discuss, there may be questions about how is AI affecting the humanitarian sector. We can get into that. But I think those three factors, each of them would be a revolution in itself. But the truth is they exacerbate each other. So just to give you one example, the global risk that COVID represents was exacerbated by the geopolitical fragmentation. And the geopolitical fragmentation, notably between China and the US, exacerbated the risk of the pandemic. So you've got these interactions of these three big forces. And I think they are creating shuddering changes in national politics. We now have 91 autocracies in the world and 88 democracies, so a reversal of the trend through 1990s. And we're seeing that in our own democratic politics, which is being convulsed both on the center right and on the center left. So I think this is a genuine, it's not an inflection point, it's a time of multiple inflection points with an unclear destination.
Thank you for sharing that. I'd love to now bring in your view on the IRC's innovative approach in addressing this unprecedented kind of multi-layered characterization of global crises that you're talking about. For me, the implications of those three factors that you discussed, technology, geopolitical and political economy shifts, as well as the unprecedented connectedness that we experience, is one of speed and also scale. And so the kinds of crises that unfold in the past are occurring not only in a more widespread fashion, but also faster than before as well. You talked about how the IRC uses many research-based approaches to implementing practices. I love that the IRC is in many ways responsible for implementing and funding randomized controlled trials. As a social scientist, I believe that's the only way that we have knowledge about anything and about how anything works. Can you talk about some of these approaches and what you've kind of sought to do on the frontier to address these types of global problems?
Yeah, let me divide it into two categories. One maybe more obvious than the other. So first of all, the programmatic and then the financial, because I want to say a word about the financial innovation as well. But on the programmatic side, the truth is that we now have the capacity to deliver our services in new ways, and we have a responsibility to deliver them in new ways because the traditional government systems just don't work. I mean, you must have heard people talk about hard to reach communities. I mean, we have the opposite view. There are hard to reach services for those communities, and it's the job of services to reach those communities. And so a lot of our pioneering work is about how you disintermediate the relationship between service providers and the clients that we serve, who might be in areas governed by non-state actors. They might be in areas that are beyond the reach of government. They might be inadequately served by government. So just to give you some examples, Gavi gave us $50 million to work in 4 war-torn parts of East Africa to reach communities, young people under the age of 5 who were cut off from vaccinations. 2 million kids, they estimated, were cut off from vaccinations because the government had no reach in that area. We developed both negotiating tactics with rebel groups and backpacks that could keep the cold chain for 4 or 5 days. And we've delivered 20 million vaccines to about 1.8 million kids for $2 a shot in 157 administrative districts in those 4 areas. So there was development of product and development of services in new ways. Just to give you an AI example, we're trying to use AI at the moment in DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, to photograph lesions on people's bodies to see if they are suffering from monkeypox. We think there are 200 rare diseases in Africa that we could map through a drive on health diagnostics using AI. We also are using AI. We're not sort of technophiliac. We're not sort of obsessed always with a technical solution. To measure malnutrition, we have a very low-tech solution of just measuring the upper arm circumference of a kid with a colored band. But we are using AI in education with some pretty striking results about computer-aided learning, helping kids whose education is interrupted. So on the program side, we feel a responsibility to try to help some of the most disadvantaged in the communities in the world, far from becoming more disadvantaged by technological change they don't have access to help leapfrog some progress. Doesn't solve everything, but we're trying across the piece. If people are interested, they can click on to the IRC Outcomes and Evidence Framework, which is online, which shows what we know about humanitarian aid delivery and what we don't know. Just let me say a word on the financing side. I mentioned earlier that we've lost $230 million of US government support in the last 6 months. It's obviously a consequence of a democratic election, and we respect the election result. But as well as trying to raise philanthropic funds, which you mentioned, there's a couple of areas that might be interested in the innovative finance space. One is that you may have heard of blue bonds or environmental debt swaps. We're trying to negotiate at the moment the world's first humanitarian debt swap. You know that developing countries are facing quite high interest rates. The debts are sucking funds out of poor countries to creditors rather than to people in their own country. We're trying to organize the world's first humanitarian debt swaps to create 10, 12-year flows of funding from lower interest rates, political underwriting, and using the difference in interest rate and the different interest payments to help support that. We've also got an interesting venture called Airbell Ventures. We've been given a small donation. We're trying to raise $6 million in total to invest in products that we think could help the humanitarian sector, but are currently frozen out by some of its more bureaucratic procurement practices. So we're trying to break down some of the barriers that exist between innovation in the private sector and humanitarian aid and practice. So both on the program side and on the financing side, we think there's work to do. And if we just hunker down in a period of retrenchment, we're not going to do our job. We want to do more than survive. We want to innovate and then thrive, maybe a bit strong, but move forward.
Thank you. There's a really, I think, insightful, generalizable connection between the two parts of your answer, which is, on the one hand, constantly developing new innovations, on the other hand, faced with a period of financial constraint, particularly based on the current administration stance on how it allocates donations and funding. And what I took away from that in many ways is that it's these periods of constraint that force organizations like IRC to be scrappy, and out of that scrappiness comes new innovative and creative solutions. And so I hope that there's something that can push all of us here to think in that way as well.
Yeah, and let me just say something about that, though. It's an interesting point. We do ask ourselves, did it take funding cuts to make us innovate? And the answer, to be fair to us, is no. And this is something that goes to your conference, I think. I was thinking about this when you were introducing the session. Mission-driven organizations are scrappy in good times as well as in bad times. I don't think we took our foot off the pedal, because although we served 36.5 million people last year, we know that there were 300 million people in need. Although we served 36 million people, we think, well, there's all sorts of parts of their lives that we weren't able to address, and we wanted more impact. And so I think that it's an interesting point, but I think that this point that mission has value as well as values at the heart of it. And one value of mission-driven organizations is that they're zestful and unsatisfied, I think is a really important and motivating point.
Thank you for adding that context. I have one more question, and then we're going to turn it over to the audience for their questions. So we're at Columbia University, Columbia Business School today. What advice would you offer to those of us here in attendance who are passionate about humanitarian issues and aspire to build their careers in the sector? I know there are a number of students in our audience in the MBA, executive MBA programs, thinking about the private sector mainly, but some are thinking about other options as well. And so what advice?
Well, I think I would say try it. I mean, if you're going to, you should try it either professionally, or if you're going to the private sector, you can try it too. You don't have to be a single sector player in the modern world. And I think that the most successful people are actually tri-sector players. I think that McKinsey or someone has done some work on that. But I think that I mean, first of all, I should an element of humility. I'm older than I would like to be, and whenever people ask me for career advice, I say, well, I'd like some myself, because I'm not sure I've ever had a very good career plan of my own. So genuine humility. But I think if you're passionate, follow your passion, because otherwise you'll be bored. And I think that if you're excited about going to work in the private sector, great, go and do that. Reserve some of your brain for work on the side, support on the side, engagement on the side, testing yourself on the side. But if you want to come into the humanitarian sector, try and come in and get down to it. Now, I do think it's important to say that although we have now 16,000 employees, we've had to let go of about 5,500 over the last 6 months. 95% of the people who work for us, 96% of the people who work for us are working in the countries that we're in. So we're very localized in that sense. But I think that my advice would be to try it. You'll find enormous challenge. And I often say to people who are, we get some good help from the private sector. We get secondments, we get support. And I often say to people, look, if your products are going to work in South Sudan, where there are enormous challenges of war and connectivity and poverty, they're probably going to work in easier places. So come and test yourself. And I think that's the spirit in which I approach the work.
Thank you, David. Thank you so much. We're going to turn over to the audience right now for any questions. I have a mic. I don't know if anyone else is here to assist me with running my, okay, so we're good. So I'm going to be on, okay, others here. So I can handle this part of the room. But does anyone have any questions? We have about 10 or so, 10 plus minutes for questions for anyone. Any questions?
I'll try and give quick answers, short answers. Unless there's no one asking questions, in which case I'll have to give a long answer.
Oh, there's someone asking questions. So I know that within the past year, they rolled out a malaria vaccine. Actually, they rolled out 2, which have about an 80% efficacy, which, as you probably know, before we were lucky to reach 40%. What are your thoughts on that? Like, just in the context of everything you just spoke to us about, because it's just such a big milestone. And I feel like as a society, we aren't talking that much about it.
Well, that's a great point, especially in the context of some of the vaccine skepticism, hesitancy, conspiracy theories that are going around at the moment. Look, we're excited about it. We're not a major player on the malaria front, but where we want to take it is to join it with our mobile health infrastructure so that we're part of the solution. Because having got a malaria vaccine, one that works significantly, we want to make sure that we're reaching people who otherwise wouldn't be reached. And we found in the communities that we work in that actually there's a lot of acceptance on the vaccine front. Word of mouth has countered the danger of conspiracy on social media, and so we feel we've got a willing audience.
Other questions, folks?
Hi, thank you so much for your time today. So my most recent position was actually acquisition and assistance and procurement for USAID's Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance. So I worked a lot with IRC in that capacity, and I just want to thank you for your time and your insights today. I've found it really helpful this year. And so my questions are, current events with this administration have spurred conversation about what the public sector and what NGOs can learn from private organizations. But as I've recalled with private enterprises and as I've worked more in the private sector space, I'm seeing that there's a lot of opportunities for growth in the private sector and lessons that they can draw from the development sector, like, more impact evaluations and meaningful engagement with their stakeholders. So I'm just wondering if you could sum it up for everybody here. What do you think people with capital, people from the private sector, should take away and learn more from development organizations moving forward?
Right. Well, first of all, thank you for your public service and for what you did in USAID. Supply chain isn't the most glamorous part of the humanitarian sector, but it's absolutely vital. I mean, if you can't avoid stockouts, then you can't deliver the services. So really, we say at the IRC, all staff are program staff, because you can't deliver if you haven't got supply chain. You can't deliver if you haven't got HR. You can't deliver if you haven't got compliance. You can't deliver if you haven't got finance. And we try to emphasize the team nature of it. So thank you for your service. I think it's important that the humanitarian and development sector is not a monolith, and the private sector is not a monolith. So saying what one has to learn from the other, I have to be careful. I think that I have limited experience in the private sector. The gimlet eye on the bottom line is a teachable moment, I think. And obviously, in the social sector, we have multiple bottom lines when we're putting at it, but making sure that you see all the way through to delivery, all the way through the delivery chain, I think is a really powerful discipline. And I said at the beginning that sometimes NGOs were subject to mission creep as they sought money. I think keeping that resolute focus about what's your job, what's your USP, what are you really good at, is something that's important, if you like, from private to social. From social to private, I want to be careful not to make presumptions or assumptions about the way in which the private sector works, and certainly, to repeat, don't want it to be a monolith. I do think that the most successful private sector organizations stimulate a sense of mission around the whole person, the whole service that they are delivering. And they conceptualize themselves as services. Now, sometimes they conceive of themselves as service and they end up doing disservice. And that's obviously a threat in any sector. But I think that really understanding what it means to be mission driven and being and having resolute honesty about your mission is something that the social sector can teach.
Thank you. Other questions? We have one down here.
Hey, so you've had a remarkable career both as a politician and now as the president of IRC. I just wanted to know, like, in your opinion, where did you add more value, or what you think was better for you, or where did you create more impact on people's lives?
I mean, I hope that I've still got something to go in the future. I don't want to sound like the absolute granddad only looking backwards. I mean, I think that one of the things I did in government as Secretary of State for the Environment was come up with the idea of the world's first, more or less 42-year legally binding target for emissions reduction for the whole of the UK. It was the Climate Change Bill. It became the Climate Change Act. We created something called the Climate Change Committee, which was the equivalent of our Federal Reserve, the equivalent of the Monetary Policy Committee, to provide independent, binding recommendations on governments. And I think that's been, it was a remarkable moment. It was done on a cross-party basis. The Prime Minister at the time said, hey, we think the Tories are trying to steal a march from us on the environment. You better, I want you to lead this and see if you can drag them along with you so that we're ahead. And I think we did that. I'm very proud of that. As Foreign Secretary, I had, in a way, an equal and opposite experience. I went with the French Foreign Minister to a refugee camp in northern Sri Lanka, and I met Sri Lankan women whose husbands had been and sons had been taken away, and they gave me these pieces of paper and said, please, can you find out what's happened to our relatives? And I still have members of the Sri Lankan Tamil community come up to me and say thank you, and I always say to them, don't thank me, because we actually failed. We didn't save those lives. So I had very contrasting experiences in government. In the NGO sector, as I say, you feel the people that you're helping directly, even if I'm not literally doing the vaccination or delivering the nutritional support. But I do feel that the IRC's growth and development in the last 12 years has been something that will endure and that has helped not just millions of people, but set a good standard for the way in which NGOs can be the solution makers. I'm a big believer that when governments are in retreat from big problems, it's up to NGOs and the private sector to step up as solution makers. We can't always manage the scale that governments can deliver, but we can take the risks and be the risk takers. And I always say to philanthropists that they are our risk capital, they're our patient capital, they're our innovation capital. And I think that's something that is now built into the IRC DNA, or rebuilt since we were started by Einstein.
I think we have time for one more question. One more question.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience. It's very, very interesting. You've emphasized that rigorous impact is a priority for the IRC. And my name is Leo. I worked on RCT for UK public policy, actually, at the Behavioral Insights team a few years ago. And I'm interested on how you balance the urgency of humanitarian action with, which requires like rapid action, with embedding robust evaluation that generally inform practice for the future.
Yeah. Well, the Behavioral Insights team is now part of an organization I helped create 30 years ago, the NESTA, the National Endowment for Science, Technology and the Arts, and it's actually run by a former colleague of mine from the IRC, Ravi Gurumurthy. So thank you for your work with them. Look, you'll know that there was always an argument that in life-saving situations, in emergency situations, randomized control trials were a luxury. My view is the opposite. In life and death situations, it's especially important to know what you're doing, and not at the expense of people you're serving, but because you're on their side. And obviously, we don't deny people water as a test of what happens to them. We know what happens if you deny people water. But if we're trialing different ways of delivering cash support for the sake of argument, we know that cash support is powerful, but is it better to give it in small increments, or is it better to give it in a lump sum? There are security issues associated with both. There are power issues associated with both. There are flexibility issues associated with both. So I think that my view is we have to take that on head on and say that actually it makes special sense when the stakes are high, that we have the best possible practice, and that takes innovation, it takes rigor, it takes testing, not by taking risks with people's lives, but by risking different ways of doing things to improve their lives.
Well, with that, thank you so much, David, for being with us today. Thank you for your insights, for your work, and for your service. We've learned so much today. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Good luck with your conference.